Hey, welcome back to Mocktails with Marina. I'm your host, Marina, and today we've got Catherine of Parch Drinks and Beverages here to discuss everything under the sun in Parchland. So I'm so excited to just dive right in and learn so much more. So let's get right to it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Catherine. I've got some questions here and we're going to just dive right in. First one right away is the founding story of Parch. I know I want to dive right in because this is such an interesting story.
It is a good one. So I'm our director of e-commerce and customer ops. And I was our co-founder's I believe I was actually our co-founder's second hire. They had brought on someone amazing to do some social media work before the brand actually launched, before products actually launched. So I wasn't physically around for kind of that origin story, that founder moment, but I've heard it many times, and I think it's just an incredible, really unique story. So we have two co-founders. Our CEO is named Rudy Aldana. He is formerly of Diageo, which I know a lot of your listeners are familiar with. And then our other co-founder who came on a little bit later is Isla Burn. Also, she has her own marketing and innovation consultancy, but she is also formerly of Diageo. So that's their connection there. But Rudy is kind of the point of origin for Parch, for sure. And it's just such an incredible story. I wish he was here to tell it to you, but I will give you the notes. So Rudy actually while he was still working with Diageo, had a really intense, sudden health scare. He was diagnosed with an advanced form of cancer. And it was, I mean, it's the C word, right? It's a very scary thing to hear. And some of them are less serious, some of them are more, some of them are a little bit more routine. This wasn't. It came on all, the onset was very, very sudden. And there was a period of time where Rudy, who is a loving father of four, very involved in his community, very involved with his job at the time, didn't think he was going to make it. And he didn't get a long runway to figure that out. It was very sudden. And then he was having procedures, having surgeries within a few weeks of his diagnosis. So he survived miraculously. We're all very, very, very thankful for that, of course. But he is still with us, thriving. The man runs marathons. He's an absolute inspiration. He's just ridiculous. His energy level is incredible. His outlook on life is incredible. I just cannot say I could take up this whole time kind of bragging on Rudy, and hopefully he won't listen to this and I don't have to hear about it because I could just say most people do not speak about their bosses or their CEO that way, but I just cannot brag on him enough. But he had kind of come out the other side of that very scary health event and made was looking at his life and how he was living his life. He was working for in a high level position with the largest conglomerate of alcoholic brands in the world, Diageo. No shade to them, certainly, but I think he just started to feel maybe a little disingenuous or discontent with what he was doing and with his own relationship to alcohol. I mean, we don't like to, it's not a very sexy thing to talk about, but ethanol is a neurotoxin. It is a carcinogen. We know that. It is probably the only one in our world that is just widely celebrated, and we like to just as a collective, as a society, just kind of scoop its negative health effects under the rug. So I mean, you asked if I went out into my friend group now, we're all in our 30s, give or take, and asked like, hey, what is your greatest fear related to alcohol? They would say a DUI. Hands down, no one would mention cancer. I have some intelligent friends, so it's pretty wild that that's where we are from a society and a cultural standpoint. But back to Rudy, he was reevaluating the way he was living his life and the things that were involved in his life, and he opted to remove alcohol from his life completely, and eventually stepped away from his role at Diageo as well. So he was kind of on the other side of those decisions. And I mean, think of it, ahead of marketing, a very naturally creative, inquisitive person. I have grocery shopped with him. Like I know what kind of human he is. He was not satisfied with the non-alc options on the market. Granted, this was 5, 6, maybe even a few more years ago. So it was a lot of frothy flavored seltzer water type. The category was not as broad or as built out or as colorful as it is today. And he saw that firsthand and opted to really dive in and make a better tasting alternative. He feels very strongly, as really the whole team does. And I've met some really beautiful people in this space that feel the same way that we do, that just because you're opting to step away from alcohol for a day or for the rest of your life or anywhere in between, that you shouldn't have to sacrifice on a quality beverage, a quality option, something creative and fun and interesting. You shouldn't sacrifice that and sacrifice that experience just because you're opting to not drink alcohol. So I know that's a very long way to answer a simple question, but it's a really, really cool story, and I love hearing it and I love telling it. And I will add just one more quick piece because you cannot forget about Isla Burn. She's an absolute force in her own right. And Rudy, engaged Isla, I believe initially on like a innovation, brand story, probably, God, she does so many things. Um, kind of engaged her in a consultant's fashion to get this brand together and off the ground. And I believe she just fell in love with it as well, and was really moved by him and his story and his motivation and also what he wanted Parch to be, and opted to deepen that relationship and came on as a co-founder and as a business partner. So they are a very, very cool team to work with.
I love that story so much. And I know we very quickly were like, dive in, tell the story right away, because the reason I wanted to just immediately get into it was to set the scene for like the amount of love that I feel like directly from Parch before even having interacted with anybody. Because, take a look at their branding if you never have, take a look at their stories. They're very intentional. There's a lot going on here. And, Catherine is a badass in this company. She runs the operations. So we've got two operations minds on this call right now, which means that we want to nerd out so bad a little bit here. So we're going to take this in a very guided direction here. And we're going to start by talking next about, I'd love to know, how many attempts did it take, do you know, how many formulations to get the drink of Parch that we have today, the varieties that you have? How many attempts did it take to get that formula right and really get that product to market?
So thank you for asking that. That's a question that doesn't get asked very often, and it's super important, I think, as CPG, as we've seen the CPG space just explode. I think people are starting to discount that pre-launch journey, that R&D that goes into it. A lot of founders that I know, a lot of founders that I work with, or have worked with, it's a very turnkey process for them, right? It's like making candles. You say, "Hey, I want it to taste like lavender," and you send it off to a lab and it comes back and it tastes like lavender, and you put it in cans and you sell it. That was not the Parch journey. As you can imagine, both Isla and Rudy wanted to be just incredibly hands-on. They are both the negative word is picky, for what they wanted. This is their baby, right? Like they wanted it to be perfect. They wanted it to be representative of the whole mission of the brand. And we'll get into this later, I'm sure, but the spiritual home of Parch Spirits is Tucson, Arizona, just right on the fringe of the Sonoran Desert. All of our flavor profiles, all of our future SKUs, future flavors, it's all inspired by and largely sourced in and around the Sonoran. So a little bit different, definitely a niche product as far as provenance and terroir. But they were really particular between traveling to the Sonoran, driving through the Sonoran, meeting people who live there and have dedicated their lives to preserving that part of our country. They did a lot. They went through quite a bit of formulations and of just different flavor note ideas. Um, they were super hands-on, which means it takes longer, right? You're not just sending it off to a flavor house or a liquid developer and getting a result back in tiny jars and tasting it. It's so I don't have a specific number for you of how many formulations, but I would imagine it was countless because I've seen them do it with future SKUs that I have to tease are coming out here soon. We'll have some new flavors and a really fun collab. I cannot spill the beans, but you guys will know in a couple weeks about that first one. So very, very exciting stuff. But I've seen how meticulous they've been with developing these new flavors, even in partnership with another brand, another company. So they really didn't. The big thing about this answer is that they wanted every piece of it to be really intentional, and not to sacrifice anything. Like we have Parch has a proprietary adaptogen stack, so it's a functional beverage. The whole brand is functional. All of our SKUs, all of our future SKUs, we don't just want to take the ethanol out and add water for volume. Like we want it to be they, especially, I shouldn't take credit for that. That was not just spreadsheet girl over here. That was our one founder. But we have ashwagandha, we have American ginseng, we have L-theanine. We want to not just take the ethanol back, but also impart something that's better for the body, better for the mind, helps you relax, helps your nervous system just take that metaphysical breath as you're sipping on it. So countless formulations. They were very, very particular with what they wanted, and I can appreciate watching them come up against, it's expensive. The more particular you are, the more intentional you are, probably the more expensive your product's going to be. And a lot of people don't opt to go that route, right? It's all about numbers, it's all about margin. Not for these guys. They could sacrifice part of the monetary benefit just to make sure that they absolutely get it right.
Good things take time. Mm.
There you go.
This is a great example of it. And, I love that you touched on the fact that Parch's spiritual home is Tucson, Arizona. Listeners out there know that I have been living in the desert for over 5 years now. Love the desert. My husband is native to the region. And so a lot of this whole process, when I first saw the branding, I was like, dang, this is beautiful. A saguaro hooks me in every time. And then I take a look and I'm like, okay, all right, but this company like walks the walk. Like here's all of the ingredients. And this is so interesting because it really feels like a drink for the desert from the desert. And when I learned that this company actually has a very interesting structure where we're not all in the same place, we're not all hanging out in Tucson. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the company culture over at Parch, but very specifically, that challenge of having a team, like maintaining a team that all works remotely. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, we are a remote first team at Parch, and not just remote first, we're actually working asynchronously as well. So we've got team members spread out in every time zone in the US. We have our wonderful CEO, who you've heard me brag about, Rudy, he's headquartered in Toronto. So we're international. We're taking over. So yeah, we communication is key for sure, in maintaining that culture, specifically when you're remote first and when you're not all in the same time zone. I don't want to be blowing up one of my West Coast team members at 10 a.m. my time, 7 a.m. their time. They're hiking. They got their dogs out. They're doing, or sleeping or doing anything that is none of my business. They're not clocked in yet, right? And likewise, I mean, I have a terrible work-life balance, so I am clocked in most of the time. But our West Coast team members know that I am in Charleston. I'm on the East Coast. So if they're hitting me up at 7 p.m. their time, I'm probably getting my grandma slippers on and getting ready for bed. So it's a communication first. Communication is key, just like anything. But we really try and stay attuned to one another. We try and be very open with if someone's getting overloaded. Hey, what can I do to help you out there? So professional support, but also personal support. We do. and I have to take credit for this. I don't know if anyone actually likes it, but I kind of insist on goofy little incentives. We do Wednesday on Wednesdays, WINS Wednesdays, where, I want to hear not just about your professional wins. If you're comfortable, I want to hear about your personal wins. Did you adopt a new puppy? Your mom was sick, but she's doing better. You kicked off a philanthropic initiative in your town. Like, we want to hear about those things and we want to celebrate them because it's not just 100% Parch 24/7 all the time. We have a team member, and I won't call her out by name on here, but she and her fiance have a podcast that is totally divergent from what she does professionally. It is just or it is a passion project. And I'm a listener of theirs, and I love it. I think that's great to see how diverse people are and celebrate that. I think it's really, really fun and really incredible. And both of our co-founders have kids and have lives and have, very, very busy people. So it's always very cool to see, oh, here we went skiing this weekend. Oh, we went to visit grandparents this weekend. It's just lovely. So we try and just take a genuine interest in one another. We do Secret Parch around the winter holidays, Secret Santa style, but we send each other little gifts, send other team members little gifts from where we're located. My team member Paul, he's just a rock star. He's in the LA area, and I always secretly on purpose assign him to me so that I get the and he knows. He's like, "Didn't I have you last year?" I'm like, "Don't know. Pulled a rabbit out of a hat. I don't make the rules." Um, yeah, so we try and we try and figure out what works and what doesn't. A lot of us are super busy, so some remote teams do lunch and learns or do little happy hours or things like that virtually with their teams. We haven't quite gotten into that yet, just because we're busy and there's not a ton of us. But I think we will continue to just kind of it's like any relationship, right? If you ignore the chemistry and ignore the culture and the communication, it's going to falter. So we kind of try to apply that to our professional relationships and work lives as well, and just make sure we have each other's backs, even though we're not in cubicles next to each other or in the same city. But we do have, I will add this note, we have trade show season coming up, and I am psyched because I get to have a team member live in front of me. I just nerd out on that. I'm sure they're like, all right, that's enough, little one. You can unhand me. I'm a hugger. That's the first thing I do. Somebody gets off a plane and I just hug them. So not that that is the most professional thing that I could do, but we get really excited when we do team retreats or anytime we see each other live. So we're hyped to have trade show season starting in March with Expo West. Got to start with the big one.
Woo
So
woo.
yeah,
That'll be a
yep,
fun
yep.
one. Heck yes. So, clearly your role in operations is so essential. I mean, the word in and of itself, operations, speaks to it. And you help bring that team together, really being the heartbeat and helping keep everybody on that same pulse. What else does it mean to be head of operations at Parch?
So I definitely can't take credit for all of it. I run our e-commerce channels. I have a hand in our production timelines, production scheduling, all of our inventory, our relationships with our vendors. That is the majority of my days, chasing vendors around and making sure they're doing the things we want them to do and that they're not waiting on us for anything. Again, just a lot of it's pretty constant communication, putting out little fires, trying to anticipate where the fires are going to start. But I love it because I get to be nosy by design. So if you're running ops, customer ops, or internal ops, I mean, you know this, you kind of need to have an eye on what everyone's doing. Not in a micromanagey, gross sense like that, but just I need to make sure that all the plates are spinning, right? Like I can't have a plate that's fallen down. So, or a
Hmm.
plate that has a team worker asleep or a team member asleep on it. You got to keep all the plates spinning at the same time. So, um, it's a sprint. Most days are not marathons. They are sprints. Um, but if you're good at it, and you know this better than most, if you're good at the operations side, it really becomes like a symphony. You look
Hmm.
chaotic and you look like your hair's on fire because it is. But at the end of the day, everything, the big plate just kept spinning and everything's lining up really nicely. So I definitely won't credit myself with being able to do that or do that every time. There's always something, right? Like there's especially this like during and post COVID space, like, man, there are some snags that just didn't used to be there and some pain points that just didn't used to be there. Everything's more expensive, everything takes more time, more energy, more effort. But if you can just kind of stay at a run most of the day, and not take your foot off the gas, it works well. And it's great to be on a team. Like, I'll say the cliche thing because it's also very true. There's so much support at Parch, which is lovely. Um I could forego Slack and call any member of our team. We are a very small team. We're an intimate little group. But I could call anyone and say, "Hey, I'm drowning over here. Like, how, can you help me with this? Or I can't find a solution for this problem. Um, can, you know, can we hop on for a few minutes and I tell you the problem and you kind of talk me through it or give me fresh eyes?" Or everyone's very open to that. And I know everybody on this team is busy. Everyone has lives. A lot of our contractors are, they don't just belong to us. Like their time is not only mine. They have multiple brands they're working with, or they have multiple gigs going on at once. So I try to stay super cognizant of that. But it's just so lovely that everyone's like, "Hey, I'm doing something until 4, but then I'm all yours." Like I don't think that I've made that SOS. I haven't sent up that white flag, that SOS flag, and not had someone be like, "Absolutely. Do you have, can I hop on in 15? Does that work?" Like it's just such a lovely team. I don't want to take it for granted because I've certainly been on teams where you are on a little ice floe by yourself, like in
Hmm.
office, and like figure it out. There's a lot of that. And it's really cool that this culture, I'm surrounded by creatives that don't even think to do that. Don't even say like, "Nope, that's your problem. That's not my lane. You deal with it." Maybe they don't know that people do that, and I want to keep the wool over their eyes. Don't tell them that
Don't
some
tell
people
them.
just don't tell them. Yeah, keep it a secret. So, yeah, but I mean, I can't brag on our team enough. Everyone is just drops what they're doing to say, what can I help you with?" So that's very lucky. I'm a lucky girl.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And honestly, I always like to compare the role of director of ops, COO, however your company names it, owns it. You're a ringleader of a circus, and there are many circus animals running around and lots of things and people up on the trapeze, and then you've got people asking where the snacks are. There's so much that goes on when it comes to ops that it really just it's really awesome to meet other people who are in these positions because usually, honestly, in order to be really great at operations for a company, right? Like you're kind of squirreled away into the company, you're like deep in it, right? And then, when
Yeah.
you do go to sleep, you're just like, okay, good night. That's it. Like
Yeah.
that was the end of my day. No more going and doing all these other things. So I can only imagine, well, not only imagine, but I've done the role of COO both in person and remotely. And when you're in person, especially in the service industry, it's really easy to be like, okay, well, I have security cameras I can look at. So I can take a look at how all of these theories I had in my head on SOPs, how they're playing out. You can literally watch them with your eyes in that way, right? But when you're remote, like, first off, weird to just be like creeping on people. That's illegal. So you don't do that. But what you do is you have to like read the breadcrumb trails in between and also see what people aren't saying. And then, you know, normally when you're in a place where everything is brick and mortar, you can see a side conversation happening. You can watch certain tasks happen. When you're remote, you're not watching these things as I mean, you are, but it's just different. It's a little bit minute. It's a couple pixels on the screen that move around instead of, like literally feeling it. So, if those of you out there who either work in remote companies or maybe kind of like a hybrid style, extra credit where credit is due. It is not as simple as it seems. Even when I started working remote before the pandemic, I've been working remote since like 2017 or 2018. And, I remember people always being like, oh, dress for the job you want. I would love to work at home when they hear that I worked from home. And I'm like, okay, you guys, like, you're saying that. And I get it. There are a lot of advantages. I'm actively wearing pajama pants and slippers right now. I'm wearing a cute top, but that's all I got to do here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this whole story is, but there's so much more, like, so much more detail you have to be attuned to because if you're not, you're going to drop it all. So it takes a very large amount of talent to be able to connect with people from a far distance. So I just want to give Catherine the credit where credit is due and everyone else that works in
Thank
those
you.
kinds of
Thank
companies.
you.
It's hard.
Well, I mean, if it's easier said than done for sure, but if you
Hmm.
just try and go into things being intentional about uh fostering a trusting environment, like, hey, I'm a safe I can't promise that everyone here is a safe person to bring your problems to or bring your stress to or whatever, or even if you're having, like HR type things in over the years in different teams. You just want to be the person that people are not afraid to come speak to, because otherwise you're not going to hear about the problems. You're going to hear about the problems from the wrong people. You're going to hear
Hmm.
about the problems from your customers or from your clients or from your vendors. Hey, your team's a nightmare. Hey, your team doesn't talk to each other. Like you're going to hear about it. I won't say when it's too late, but by the time it's a huge problem if you're hearing about something that should be internal to your team from a third party vendor,
Mm.
from someone that you've outsourced something else to. Like that's a huge deal. So if you can just kind of be available, give people space and give people the option to come to you, but also temper your reactions to, it's kind of like parenting, isn't it? And this definitely doesn't apply to the Parch team where it's a team full of grown-ups. I'm very lucky, but on previous teams, there have been previous brands, previous roles, there have certainly been people that I should be reporting an issue to, and it's like, ugh, they're gonna yell. I don't want to hear it. I don't even want to deal with it. Let me try and I'll fix it quickly myself, or I'll scoop it under the rug and hope it doesn't climb out or anything like that. So that I think I've seen, and I'm sure most of us have, um, working for various bosses or in various hierarchies that we've seen what doesn't work and what doesn't feel good and what doesn't feel good to take part in. So I'm just trying to mirror the opposite now. Like you've seen what not to do. Like let's try and put it into practice the things that I wanted to see on other teams and it just wasn't there. So not a lot of need for that on the Partridge team because everyone is wonderful and everyone's very very grown up. But I'm sure it'll come back into play at some point elsewhere, but yeah, I think the circus analogy is great. And if someone's up on the trapeze, but you trust them and hey, if they were scared up there, they would have come to me already.
Hmm.
They're doing it. They've got their thing. Like I don't need to keep an eye on, they don't need to be in my periphery because I know they've got it. And if they don't have it, they would have come to me already. Then you don't have to be scared that they're up so high. Like they've got it taken care of.
Yeah, you just get to be there cheering them on. It's the
Yep, just
best.
watch. Yep.
So, all of this being said, I would love to hear it from your perspective. Let's say there's a listener out there who's like, I have an idea for a beverage, whether it's a ready to drink can or otherwise. They just want to start their own zero proof journey. They want to start something and they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do first. Now, I know that you're here for operations, right? You aren't a founding member, but from the operations perspective, I feel like this question is so important because a lot of people are like, dreams, like just focus on the dreams. But it's like, we're the ones that help get it into actual reality. So, what advice would you give to someone who really does want to start their own, the Parch story speaks to them. They're like, "Oh, I have an idea. I want to do that. Like, how do I do this?"
Yeah, so if you're speaking about beverages and NA specifically, I mean, I think it's a great question to ask operators because um you see the issue, not non-alc specifically. It's a niche that it's exploding, which means every few weeks we get a new brand. Sometimes every few days we get a new brand. And a lot of them are wonderful and inventive, and the product is great, and the liquid is incredible, and it brings something new to the scene. But still, we're seeing people churn out things that don't taste very good. And it's not, oh, you know, everybody's got different taste buds, everybody's got different preferences. Like, yeah, that's true, but some of these things are just bad.
No, they're
Nobody likes
bad.
And also, what is it? It's just, you read an ingredient list and it's just filler and it's just junk. And someone who is, you need to know. So that would be my first piece of advice is you need to know your audience. You need to know your consumer. Non-alc consumers specifically, they're looking for something non-alcoholic for a reason. And that reason could be incredibly varied. And their timeline could be incredibly varied. They could be stepping away from alcohol for an hour. They could be stepping away from alcohol for 2 weeks because they're on antibiotics or they're on medication, or it could be for the rest of their life. They've decided this doesn't jive with who I want to be and where, my goals um outside of, socialization and the positives that alcohol does bring. So, it's, I would know who your customer is because they're especially smart. They're especially intentional about their actions already by nature. So don't sell them crap because they're not going to buy it. Like they're not gonna fall for little marketing tricks and the buzzwords and things. Like this is a very smart consumer. So not to scare anyone who wants to start their own banner, start their own brand in the NA space. It's beverages. Beverages are tricky. The beverage space is flooded right now. It's really hard to stand out. I would say you can have a beautiful website. You can have a beautiful, your Shopify store is just perfect. You can have beautiful marketing campaigns. You can pay and outsource for just beautiful customer facing work. Make sure your liquid tastes good. And if you can, make sure it brings something to the space that's not already there. Like you don't want to make a carbon copy of, I want to start a mint tea. Okay, here's another mint tea. Like you don't want to play copycat. You don't want to try and improve on something that's already very, very good, and serving its purpose. So, but that would be that's a little chatty version. But I would say make sure the liquid tastes good and make sure it's bringing some sort of value to a very crowded arena. And I look forward to it. And I can't wait to meet you, little budding founder. I can't wait. So we'll see you on shelves next year. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it. And, friendly reminder out there, there's like 400,000 different plants out there. So even if you're like, I have this great idea for this plant that I haven't seen in the space yet, and then you see someone else start with that plant, just remember there's like so many different combinations. There's so much more you can dive into it and, really make it unique to exactly the people who need it, your people. So, all of that being said, let's get back to Parch. I'm curious, who's Parch's people? Where can we find Parch in the marketplace?
So in the marketplace, we're going through a period of really high growth, which is super exciting. You can find us a bunch of different places. You can find us on drinkparch.com first and foremost. You can find us on Amazon. You can find us on shelves at Sprouts. You can find us in about 550 independent doors spread out across the country, which NA bottle shops, man, if you're a brand nerd or a CPG nerd, go seek out. Take a step out of, I mean, listen, Erewhon is dope, Central Market's dope. The artisanal grocers are very, very cool. You West Coasters, you're spoiled. You have so many of them. None of them are over here. But um Southeast, everyone, come to the Southeast. But if you want to take that a step further and you just nerd out in those spaces, go find you a non-alcoholic bottle shop because they are really, really cool to just delve into all these fun brands. All these brands are, under 2 or 3 years old for the most part. Really, really cool spaces. And the owners and the people working in them are really interesting. They tend to be little community builders. They tend to be really interesting folks. Some sober, some not. But they all have stories. They all have a really interesting story. So I'm really proud of our indies. I know that is not always what makes the headlines for brands and for CPGs, but um, the large retailers are very exciting. The big banner signings, which we have a few coming again. Sorry to tease, but we have a few that all will be revealed in a few weeks. We got a couple big signings for 2024, and we'll be on the shelves of some very recognizable retailers here soon. I cannot divulge full details, And while that's very, very exciting, and that is what makes the headlines and what gets the clicks, I absolutely, and anyone on your team, on our team, will laugh when they hear this because I love our independent retailers. If you have one location and you're in this little random town in the US, you're my people. Like you're my peeps. If you like tentatively reach out and you're like, "Hey, we're having an event. Probably only have 20 people at it, but we're gonna have one." I'm like, "Perfect. Let me send you some parch." Like you're who I want to talk to. So yes, I'm definitely a cheerleader for all of our indie retailers, which is always very exciting. I love them. And anytime I travel, I've become that girl. My wife is like, "Where are we going this time?" I have to go visit all of our independent retailers, and I think they're gonna like be excited to see me. But I slink into their shops and I'm like, "Oh, hey, I help run this company that you sell." Like I try to name drop as if I'm a celebrity. But yes, I go nerd out in our little indie retailers, so those are my favorites. But you can easily find us on shelf at the more recognizable spots as well: Sprouts, Central Market, Town and Country, all the good guys there. Yeah. Let's see, your LA listeners, High Low Liquor Marts. I know those are a great little chain in the Southern California area. So but yeah, and if you don't be shy, like we're a small brand, we're a growing brand. If you have your favorite for your listeners, if you have your favorite corner store or your favorite grocer or your favorite whatever, or even your favorite online marketplace, and you don't see Parch there and you think we should be or you wish we were, drop us a line, reach out to us on Instagram, reach out to me personally, at Drink Parch on IG, or mine is oh gosh, what is mine? At Cat Roars, Cat Pours. Kind of a funny IG name there, but yeah, reach out to us personally and just say, "Hey, Marina's bodega, I think you should be there." And I'll say, "Yeah, me too. Let me send you some samples to drop off, or let me reach out to them." So we're super personable. We hope we never get too big to like chat with customers on a one-to-one basis. I absolutely adore that. So that's where you can find us.
Yeah, shout out to these alcohol-free bottle shops. They are so epic. Vegas just got a new one run by a beautiful woman named Erin. Um, I believe she's calling it Sin City Saints now.
He
It's
sure
in
is. And guess who'll be pouring at her
yeah.
grand opening in a couple weeks? Yeah,
Yes,
March.
party. We're gonna all come hang out. Come hang out with us if you're in Vegas. If you're not in Vegas, jump on a flight. Come hang out with us in Vegas. It'll be a good
Cheap
time.
flights to Vegas. Come on, it'll be fun.
Honestly, Vegas is one of the cheapest places to fly in and out of because it is one of those big internationals. So, I'll make sure to put the information for not only Parch but also Sin City Saints bottle shop down here in Vegas, and I'll make sure that's all in the description for you. But we're not done. We still have a couple more questions, real quick here. So, you've told us that there's some exciting things that we can't quite yet talk about that's currently exciting in the company. But is there anything else on the horizon that you wanted to kind of tell us about?
Yeah, I know I've teased a lot. We'll chat in a few weeks, and I'll send you the news clip when I am legally allowed to announce things. You'll be the first to know. Sorry, listeners, you'll just have to tune in. I'm sure Marina will post it and share it. But let's see, what can I talk about that's exciting? We will be at trade shows. I think we're doing, small kind of emerging brand. We were pretty conservative with trade shows for the past 2 years. 2024 is going to be a little different. We are going to have a presence. We want to be everywhere. Like we just want to talk to everyone. We're going to be at distributor shows. We are going to be coming up in March. We are at Expo West in Anaheim, of course, along with everybody else. Although we are not taking part in this, but there are some really cool for like mid-level or mid-age brands that have kind of, or even emerging brands that have written off trade shows. Oh, it's too expensive. I can't do it, whatever. Check out Startup CPG. Check out people are doing like backpack brands. Here in the Southern California and the LA area, they're doing some like not trade show type things that have a much lower entry point price wise and are still just as advantageous. So that's always fun. Some little smaller, more boutique trade shows are popping up all across the country. Kind of saw that trend start to happen last year, and they're coming full force this year. So super excited for that kind of thing. Expo West is a beast, but we're excited to be there. I myself will be at Bar and Restaurant Expo in Vegas, in like that week of St. Patty's. Yes, Vegas, let's go.
Woo woo, let's do it.
We will be there for Bar and Restaurant Expo, which as a former food and bever, I'm excited to nerd out there. Both brands and bar and restauranty stuff. I'm pretty excited about that. And then we've got a bunch of trade shows on the East Coast later in the year as well. So we're excited for that, excited to make your acquaintance, excited to just be, to be, I don't want to be insensitive, but like pushing past the COVID era, trying to get the door closed on the COVID era and be back in person, sampling at events, in store. We are doing a big Yeti activation in a couple of weeks. They are dropping a new color that I cannot divulge. Sorry to be the keeper of the secrets. But we're excited to be there and excited to help with that launch. So you'll see us in your cities at the Yeti HQs later on in the month. What else? What else? What else? I'll have a lot more specific things that I can say in a couple of weeks. You're catching me at a point where I've gotta keep some secrets, but really just, again with the cliches, like excited to see where the NA space goes this year. I think 2024 is going to be a big year for the category, a big year for some other brand buddies that we have. A lot of people are doing a lot of big things, and we all kind of collectively saw the there was actual backlash for Dry January this year. There was a lot of mocking. There was a lot of like, oh, are you sober curious? Like there was a lot of, and granted, I am in the South, so I probably see a little bit more of it than most, but we're excited to rebound from that and say, listen, this is not like the non-alc wave. It's not a temporary trend. It's not something that, housewives were drinking too much red wine during COVID and now the new buzzword is sober curiosity. That's not what this is. Like this is a real thing. We're the real deal. And there are some really beautiful brands that are emerging in the non-alc space. So you know, it's a really exciting time, and I think 2024 is gonna definitely shut the door on that narrative that like, oh, this is just a fad diet and you guys will be bankrupt in 6 months. It's like, that's just not it. Sorry. Like that, that's that nope. Like I like hearing your opinion, Chad, but that's not it. So
Yes, and I love that we're mentioning this actually to sum this entire episode up here because, a lot of people who listen into this podcast are on some sort of sober journey. And, I feel like I got sober right before COVID, like months before. None of us knew it was happening, and I just wanted to quit alcohol and cigarettes at the same time. So I did the thing. And I remember being like, because I was a performer in Vegas, being like, well, what does this mean for my career? What does this mean for anything? Because I don't want to get paid in alcohol
friendships,
anymore.
relationships, like what is this going to look like?
All
It's
of
very
it.
it's very scary.
It's
Um,
scary. And when you
yeah,
have like all of society, during these moments where, for example, alcohol free 2023 was a banger. Like that was huge. And you're right. This year for dry January, there's a little bit of this like, okay, well, now that the alcohol free options and zero proof options have really come to center stage, now it's time for certain people to mock, certain people do this thing. And to me, I feel like this is a really awesome moment of unification where it's like standing loud and proud in what decisions you've made in life. And a lot of people in the wellness space who are attracted to these beverages tend to, have a real reason they're here. Like, even the people who I've worked with who, I'm a millennial, I'm a baby millennial, but I'm still a millennial.
yeah.
And a lot of the people
I'll
who
wave at you from my ivory tower of elder millennialness. I'll wave to you from up there.
I didn't get my first cell phone, my first smartphone until after I graduated college. So
Look
just
at you.
saying.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
My baby photos were not on any sort of iPad or any sort of device other than a film camera.
Ah,
But that
okay.
all being said, a lot of the people that I worked with at the Kava bar were very, they're in college. And I remember thinking at first, like, okay, some of them they're still drinking, so this is just a job for them. But as I got deeper and deeper into it and I started really being like, okay, I'm only hiring people where this is like your career and it means something to you because that's going to mean something to the people that you're serving the drink to because now you're having this connection. If they say anything about sobriety or addiction or anything, the scaries that people don't like to talk about, now at least you have the comfort and ability to talk about it because it's something that this isn't just a job, it's something that matters to you. And
Yeah.
all of that being said, I remember at first I didn't know that kava bars were even a thing. So when I first got sober, I was like, okay, well, good thing we're kind of in a pandemic, so I can just like stay at home, I guess, because I don't even know where to go hang out. And then once I got enough like stir craziness out of all of it, and I was like, you know what? I'm ready. It's time. I'm sick of being like in this situation when I was literally live entertainment capital of the world doing things all the time. So
Yeah,
when
I
I
can't
moved,
imagine.
it's crazy. It was very depressing. And when I moved to Phoenix, because everything was more open and people were doing things, and then I found the Kava bar, and then I started talking to other people who also got sober around the same time and were experiencing the same things. We realized we're like, oh my gosh, this is really like we all like we're if we're looking at this from like a big societal perspective here, it's like there's always a something going on in everyone's personal lives, but there's something huge happening for a lot of people right now. And, the effects of the quarantines were a lot on people. We're not supposed to be that disconnected. And because of this, you know, it's finding a way to reconnect and relearn as if we're 18, as if we're 21 all over again. The
Yeah.
first time you go into a bar, you don't know how it works. I remember being like, so there's like no cashier. So like, where do I sit at the bar to make this? Like, those things that aren't obvious at first when you're
I remember
sober.
my drink orders. My drink orders were a big source of anxiety. Like, what is what I order going to tell the bartender about? And this was when I was
Hmm.
of age. Forget about, being underage and that level of nervousness. But and hopefully that's something that we're going to see go away in our lifetimes. Like people getting fake IDs and like just clamoring to get into bar. Like I think that's going to cease to exist in another generation or two, which is really incredible because it took up such a large part of my like that transition from adolescence to adult to young adulthood that those
Hmm.
not everyone is in college at the same time or in college at all, but certainly not for everyone. But I was in college at the standard age of 18 to 22. And like that block of years, like that was alcohol was such a focus. Procuring it. How do we get it? How do we, like that was such a that really was a driving factor in so much that we did and so many conversations that were had. And how many conversations do you or interactions do you not remember because like it's a really sad, eye-opening thing to look back on. I just turned 35, so talking 14, 15 years later, and I just have so much hope for Gen Z and beyond that they are breaking these chains of our relationship with alcohol and our parents' relationship with alcohol. I think it's really incredible. But I also have some ignorant thoughts of like, well, then what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to fill your time if that was such a big focus for us and such a time suck? Like, what are you gonna do? Go hang out over coffee or whatever? Yeah, they are. Like it's really incredible to think of. I can't relate to it on a deep level from an adolescent mindset because I didn't have that experience, but it is very, very cool and induces a lot of hope, a lot of like deep hope in me that to see that and to have those conversations with Gen Z and beyond. I think it's really, really cool.
Oh, it's so cool. And gosh, you just made me realize how, like, I grew up in Wisconsin. I had no, like, there was the bar, there's church, and then there's school, and then there's the farm field. Like, that's where you hang out. Like, that's what you've got. And, you know, nowadays, my next podcast interview after this is with the founders of the Saria um, non-alcoholic beer. And I grew up drinking Blue Moon all the time at school and stuff. And so it's just like it's cool to be like even the brands that are genuinely, they've been around and they were part of that, and then they're like, oh man, but there's got to be a better way. So the ones that are actually adapting and allowing for these spaces for everyone to hang out, so it's not like, oh man, like all my friends want a beer, like I'm gonna be that weirdo drinking water and they're gonna make fun of me, or can there at least be a zero proof one on the bar so I can be one with my friends, because for example, yes, there's a lot of people when you get sober that don't aren't going to be your friends anymore, but the cool ones, I have great cool friends that have been around for over a decade in my life, and I just went and celebrated one's wedding this weekend, and she was so sweet. She didn't give a fuck that there was water in my cup. Like we all
Yeah.
cheersed in our cute little cups
Yeah.
anyway.
It's a
So,
weird thing to be
yeah,
bothered by, but we
yeah.
in a societal moment right now where everybody's, we're tearing each other down, anything you can kind of pick at, even close friends. Like, yeah, I mean, that's the whole, not the whole, but that's a big part of the anxiety around a lot of people's resistance to not just get sober, but even just cut down on alcohol or kind of take a few weeks or months to reevaluate their relationship with alcohol is like, ugh, it's not what you think, it's what everybody else thinks. What am I going to tell people? What are they going to say? What are they going to think? Oh, you're not drinking, you're boring. Like and I know that because I said those things 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Oh, you're done? Ugh, boring. Meh. Like you have this like gut reaction and it's a very anxiety producing thing to kind of swim against the tide of your friend group, of your family, of your, even your spouse or your partner. Like it can be very, it's sad that that's where we are, but also like, breaking those chains, it's happening. So the conversation's out there and I love it. It's almost odd to me for if I'm doing a sampling or someone asks me what I do, what brand I'm affiliated with, and I start talking about Parch, and they're like, non-alcoholic cocktail. How does that work? It's like, oh, I'm so glad you asked. Let me tell you, and start to get into it. And it's much more rare or getting there. Again, I'm in the South, so a little trickier here, but um, it's really nice for it to be so rare for somebody to just completely throw their hands up about it. Most people kind of lean in and they're, huh, okay, why would I want that? Like they engage in the conversation. They're curious about it rather than, yeah, pour some tequila in that, get out of here. Like you get that, of course, but like it is really nice to see that reaction kind of start to fade back.
Oh yeah. I will say I was probably the one dancing the most foolish at the wedding, and I remember literally watching people be shocked because they know that I'm like the only sober one at that wedding. It was a Floridian wedding.
Oh,
Lots
wow.
of, yes, so very, very
Well,
festive,
Cava
very
girl,
loud.
that's great. An excuse to go
Hey,
to Florida. Isn't
right?
it St. Pete or Tampa? It's just like a Cava
Oh
spot.
yeah.
Yeah,
So many. There were literally at least five within walking distance of our Airbnb in St. Pete. I felt so spoiled.
nice. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, if you were in St. Pete, you were in the middle of the Cava moment. That's awesome.
Yes, it was beautiful. Thank you so much, Catherine, for this amazing
Yeah,
conversation about Parch. And I hope that all the listeners out there go and give it a try. We'll make sure to put all the links in the description of this video so that you can give it a try yourself. And, if there's any other questions that come up or while you're trying it yourself, if something, pops into your eyes, maybe you're like, ooh, I have an idea for a recipe. I want to post and share about it. Please do so. Give us a tag, both of us. And we would love to share, dive deeper, and answer any other questions you have. So until then, thank you again so much for your time. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate having you here.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Marina. And listeners, thanks so much, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yes, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and just stay tuned for our episode for next week, which is going to be all about Saria Brewing Company. It'll be so exciting. So until then, if you need anything, let me know.